I'll be blunt. I don't want to be a diplomat today because it's now a matter of urgency. This is not hyperbole. This is a matter of urgency because I agree with what was said before, and I've been saying this myself, that we may not reach the centennial in 7 years whole, let alone prosperous and safe, if we don't do something substantive, serious, including neutralizing Lebanon from what's going on. Last 60 years have been years of conflicts, not recognized when Lebanon was established. When Lebanon was established, there was no Palestinian problem. There was no Shia-Sunni problem. There was no Iran-Saudi Arabia problem. There was no Iraqi Ba'ath and Syrian Ba'ath. The history of the last 60 years has been so obvious that if we don't protect ourselves, and the word in Arabic for tahyid or haidu is not only neutral, but be protected or kept aside. And I don't want to get into legal stuff. Obviously, academics do this all the time. Truth is, we want to stay away, not away from these conflicts of today. We don't know what the conflict is going to be 10 years from now or even 5 years from now. I don't want to predict how the region is going to look like. We all hope that it will be great, democratic, and open and tolerant, all of that, but I want to be safe. And to be safe has to include neutralization. Why? Well, because in many ways we're different from Switzerland, but in many ways we are like Switzerland. I mean, some people like to think of differences in a sort of ethnocentric way. Like in the West, maybe we all look and sound the same. You're all Arabs or you're all Muslim. Truth is, these differences are defined by people's heads, and what is real in people's heads is real in its implications. We have to recognize it and not pretend that we can overlook these things and go on as if they didn't exist. No off-the-shelf recipes for neutralization. So I don't want to say that we can take this model, that model, but there are certain things that are obvious in the case of Lebanon. One is, in my book, the easier thing, that the state of Lebanon should be neutral from regional conflicts. Obviously, that's the case because at the very least, we have negative vetoes of sort of the state of Lebanon moving in a direction officially. The last time it was tried in an independent Lebanon was 1958. Some may disagree with that, but I think that's when Lebanon came close to being part of the Baghdad Pact. Afterwards, it was either forced to be in an alliance, that was the Syrian administration years, or at war. So Lebanon as a state, I think it's easiest to talk about the state formally or in principle being neutral. There are two other conditions. One is groups within Lebanon not taking part in conflicts. And I don't want to mean that it's okay to have armed groups here refraining from joining other conflicts. To me, there's no way that Lebanon can be neutral. There's no way that Lebanon can be sovereign, the state of Lebanon be sovereign. There's no way that Lebanon can be cohesive and the fault lines not getting sharper with armed groups in Lebanon. No matter under what pretext, for what cause, this is in conflict with the existence of a unitary state, and period. So it's not enough, although it's important for us and should be for everyone, that Hezbollah not be part of that war in Syria, but it's not good enough. Hezbollah cannot stay as an armed organization and continue to think that Lebanon can continue as a unified, safe, prosperous state. The third condition is for the rest of the world, including the region especially, not to use Lebanon as a theater because it's fragile. Its constitution and its structure is fragile. It can be used easily. We don't have a police state. We never had that. Therefore, it can be used either as a landscape, as a theater, or Lebanese groups can be used. And that needs to be also prevented. The two speakers, Austria and our Swiss friend, talked about balance. I mean, you can't start from an imbalanced position and hope to realistically move to anything called neutrality. And there are two dimensions to the balance. The first is an outside balance, because the outside, the region, the world is important. In the case of Austria, had it not been for Russian occupation, the Allies occupying part of Austria and saying to Austria, especially the Russians, you either become neutral or you're not going to be an independent Austria. And had that not happened, maybe Austria would have been like Germany and counterfactual. We don't know what would have happened. So, yes, outside powers matter. In the case of Lebanon, and I'm not going to be diplomatic, I'll describe things the way they are. Now, of course we don't have balance. We have a presence of the Iranian regional military defense strategy that's right here. And I'm not trying to badmouth Hezbollah. I mean, the truth is there is a regional conflict and Lebanon is an important part of it. The point is, whether it has a Lebanese agenda or regional agenda or an Islamic agenda, the fact is Iran is very important in Lebanon. There's no match. And we don't want, and we will be against creating a balance by creating another counterpart. I mean, that would be disastrous. That would be taking us back to days that we don't want to get back to, or to Switzerland when there was negative neutrality in the sense that you had factions who were armed and so forth. So how do you create balance? I want to shorten my comments to say, with all this rather difficult situation, I myself see a very strong ground for serious action on neutrality, and I'll explain why. As I said before, and as everyone has said, you need balance and external balance, and you also need a domestic balance. I'll start with the domestic balance. I'll start with what I said before. A vast majority of Lebanese believe in this. No, we're not divided on the need to protect Lebanon and not indulging it in or involving it in foreign conflicts or bringing other conflicts to Lebanon. That is there. This needs to be supported by everyone who genuinely believes this should happen. And I think many, frankly, who are neither with us politically or active politically are silent on this, as if that it's not their thing. So we have enough support to raise it to the consciousness of the country. We have another thing on the external level. We have serious negotiations taking place today and in the coming weeks and months in the region and in the world, involving Iran, its adversaries, and maybe soon it'll be Iran versus other powers in the region. Neutralizing Lebanon, we believe, should be on the agenda of the international community, on the agenda of the regional powers, and certainly on our own domestic agenda. And I believe we need to reach a point, not in the too distant future, to take this seriously to where it belongs, to the UN, to the Security Council, to the region. Why the UN Security Council? Because our neutrality and safeguarding Lebanon is anchored in 1701. This is an international roadmap to neutralize Lebanon and protect it. All the principles underlying our objective are there, and 1701 has yet to be implemented. Only the immediate parts have been implemented. Also, sometimes circumstantial reasons allow you to move to neutrality. Well, now we have what's happening between Iran and the region and the world. Perhaps what seems to be an imbalance in Lebanon, if you look at it from a global standpoint, we may seize the moment to elevate this national principle and objective into something on that level. It needs to be on that level. Neutrality and protecting Lebanon is not going to happen from the bottom up on its own. In Austria, it happened because the Russians said you either become neutral or you'll not be sovereign. I think we're likely to lose both if we don't do something about it. So I'm a believer in actually taking this all the way. And at the very least, I think we need to act on this because we don't have the luxury of waiting, and we don't have options or privileges like neutrality was described earlier. I think it's in Lebanon, it's a necessity. Thank you.